Duke baseball is super. The Blue Devils are heading to the Super Regionals, and they get to play at home. This is incredible.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So excited to have you here with us today on Thursday, June 5th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. And today, you know that we got to talk about this Duke baseball team that is going to be playing Super Regionals at home. They'll be taking on a really testy Murray State squad that should set up for a fun and exciting series this weekend. We'll have that conversation on today's show with our good friends from the Section 17 podcast, Josh Cox and Scott Medlin, talking all things bat and ball sports. Have a little football conversation for you at the end of it. Really excited to have these guys on the show with us here today. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like our videos on YouTube to watch the show each and every day. Really do appreciate your support as we continue to grow closer to 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. All thanks to you guys. So without further ado, let's bring Josh and Scott on into the program, talking about an exciting weekend up ahead for the Blue Devils. Josh, it's good to see you once again, my friend. And why don't you do the honors of giving me the Scott Medlin and the Locked On Blue Devils folks, the Scott Medlin introduction.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a couple of weeks, JJ. It's good to be back, man, with you. So we obviously started a football podcast, but all four of us on the football podcast have been, lifelong Duke fans in general. And we joke a ton on our podcast about like we hate on basketball, which obviously, we don't necessarily hate on basketball. We just don't talk about it on our podcast. But Scott, a couple of years ago, was able to kind of take on baseball. So Scott is a baseball guru. You can see he's a Giants fan. If you're watching on YouTube, he's a San Francisco Giants fan. You can feel free to hold that against him. But anyway, Scott has here's the thing, JJ. Scott puts the time in and the energy in and the effort in. Scott is at most Duke home games for baseball. And the games that he's not at, he keeps up with. He can tell you pitching staff, all the ins and outs. I can give you like a couple of like key players and kind of what's been going on this year. I keep up with it at more of an arm's length, and Scott's there day to day. So he does a great job. If you follow him on Twitter, he keeps you updated on everything Duke baseball. So,
Scott, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Excited to kind of talk about this run and hearing about the baseball aficionado that you are, and it's been really fun to follow this team throughout the course of the season. A Duke team that a year ago wins the ACC tournament. They feel like they've got an opportunity to host a regional. That was not the case. Ultimately fall there in the Oklahoma regional. Now we've got a Duke team that goes down to Athens. Kind of set the scene for us. What were your bigger takeaways from this past weekend when Duke's able to win it?
Well, first and foremost, Ben Miller getting hurt was one of the things that was not ideal. But in this situation where he got hurt on Saturday night, the guys still, did their job, got them where they needed to be. And I learned a couple weeks ago, it's actually funny talking to the SID here at Duke. I kind of get wound up. That's one of the things I do. I'm very, Josh will tell you, I'm just so into everything. And they get down early, kind of start messing with me a little bit. But that's actually been the theme so far this season. They've got down early the first couple innings. And he's like, dude, just relax. It's okay. There's still 9 more innings. You still have a chance. Cool. Chill. But that's one of the great things about this team. The basketball has the brotherhood. These guys are blue collar. They fight. They bring their lunch pail. And even without Ben Miller's Sunday night, they were able to take it. Great pitching by the guys who were out there, but got them an opportunity to have a chance in the 8th inning. And then, Sam Harris, he did his thing and drove in the 2 runs. And shout out to the third base coach for sending Ben Rounds from first.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Because my wife's sitting here watching it with me that day, and she's just like, "Why are you yelling?" I'm like, "He's not going to send him. He's not going to send him." And then next thing I know, I see Browns running and going home. I'm like, "Oh, dude, this is awesome." So like I said, I get a little wound up every now and then watching the game. But the biggest take I have, it's kind of funny. The pitching staff has just been unbelievable. They've had their moments, and it's funny. This weekend they only pitched maybe 7 guys, only one right-hander. Gabe Nard was the only guy that came out of the bullpen. 3 starting pitchers were lefties. The 2 guys at the very end of the bullpen, Easterly and Talon, are both lefties. And these are all guys who have been in big situations and a couple grad transfers. I think the worst thing about the weekend, and you may have had this on your mind, but somebody's got to free AJ Gracia.
Yeah.
That is the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen in my life. I watched a game.
We'll definitely get to that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but that's ludicrous. But anyway, so other than that, man, this team is just locked in right now. And I think that's one of the things. Coach Pollard is a great manager, and he's done a great job over the years. And, I joked a couple of times during the season, he's great at plugging and playing. He likes to bat the righty versus the righty, the lefty versus the lefty. Sam Harris has been a guy he's used all season in the DH spot. And he used Noah Murray twice in the DH, 3 times counting this weekend. And he had to use him at third base the other day because of Miller being out. But the first game he gets in there, hits his first 2 home runs. The second home run that night is a walk-off on a Tuesday night, a midweek game. Then in the ACC tournament, they need a run. They need some help. He hits a solo shot up Tobacco Road and gets the team fired up a little bit. So, Coach Pollard has done a great job. The rest of the coaches have done a great job.
Yeah, and mixing the lineup throughout the course of the season. I think the pitching point is certainly unique because lefties are obviously more prevalent in college baseball now and in baseball period than they were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. But even still, to only throw 1 right-hander throughout the course of a weekend when your season is on the line is so interesting. And when we get into postseason, pitching staffs are all the more paramount. You saw Duke win a 12-5 game where they scored more. They won 6-3. They won 3-2. So they won kind of low-scoring affairs as well where you needed to really rely on your aces to get the job done. I find it so fascinating, and that's going to be the conversation going into this weekend as well, how teams manage their pitching staffs. Because you could argue, seeing number 1 Vandy, number 2 Texas going down this past weekend, you think you could be in the winner's bracket game, then you're not. All of a sudden, you're saving arms. It's just that is the most challenging decision I think these coaches have to make.
Yeah, let me say something real quick, Scott, on that. One of the things, speaking of Coach Pollard and the pitching staff, and Scott, you may have plans to mention this and feel free to elaborate on it. But the fact that he put the trust in Kyle Johnson, who Kyle had such a promising freshman season, came into the year, he's going to be one of the studs. And honestly, he just hadn't pitched well. And then over the season had kind of lost opportunities. And for Coach Pollard to give him the ball in a really important part, obviously, of the season, really at a make or break part, he really came out and pitched a great game. And then when Gracia got booted, they put in KJ into center field because he's a jack of all trades. He can hit, play the field, and pitch. And wouldn't you know it, the first pitch or the first batter sends a line drive shot straight to center field. That's like really tough to judge. And Kyle comes up with a great play. And so I think, I got to give Kyle Johnson a shout out for his play. But Scott, feel free to speak into that more.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Duke has followed basically the same theory as far as starters. Owen Prosch was the Friday night starter up until recently when Healy got hurt and he came out of the rotation. KJ took over, and KJ's been the Saturday starter. And then, honestly, Henry Zatowski pitched the game of his life as a true freshman. And talking about Zatowski, he pitched early, and I don't remember what game number it was, and I could look if I took the time. He pitched against Liberty on a Tuesday night. Liberty hit 5 home runs in the first 2 innings, all opposite field home runs. Man got lit up like a Christmas tree. But he kept plugging. He kept doing his thing. And as the season has progressed, he's gotten better. Take a step back for one more second. Owen Prosh, the last 3 weeks, oh my goodness. He has been the stud for Friday night for Duke baseball. Last week he pitched one of the greatest games he pitched all season, the longest he pitched, the most pitches. But he got us, Duke. Sorry.
You're good. It's absolutely us. It's us.
I cannot get past being a fan. I love this team so much, and anyway. But the fact that they were in the situation, he got them there, they won, and he's done that all season. And that's one of the things I think I love, the fact that Coach has the supreme confidence in these guys. And he sets them up. And you talk about pitching and stuff. We go to the ACC tournament. We pitch Owen Prosh on the first night. Duke gets the win. Well, we know that if we get to Saturday and Sunday, you're going to have to do what you can. So what does he do? He basically has a bullpen session. He has all the guys available. They're all hot and they're all ready. And in fact, saying that, again, I texted the SID before the game, during the game, and he said the same thing. They're hot and ready to go. Coach Pollard does not want to play Monday. He wants to finish it up tonight and come home. And that's exactly what they did. And to me, that's just supreme confidence that the man has in his staff and in his players.
Yeah, well, he's going to continue to need to have that confidence in his team, and he will as Duke gets set to play Murray State this weekend in Super Regionals. Duke baseball hasn't been to the College World Series since 1961. That is a really, really long time ago, and they are 2 wins away from changing that. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Let's get to the AJ Gracia of it all and so much more after we take our first break here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. We're down to the NBA Finals, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. The NBA Finals do get going tonight. The Pacers and the Thunder. Right now, our friends at FanDuel have OKC favored by 9.5 points in Game 1. Some pretty exciting action for you to get involved with. Are you new to FanDuel? Well, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, let's keep going forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson here. I've got my friends Josh Cox and Scott Medlin here with me on the program today. A lot of people are talking about AJ Gracia and the events that unfolded this past weekend in the Athens Regional. Let's catch up to speed real quick.
I'm incredibly disappointed in the rule and in the way the rule was interpreted and executed tonight. AJ Gracia, who's one of the best players in college baseball, hit a home run earlier in the inning to put us within 1 run. We have a celebration in our dugout where we give the construction helmet to the player that makes a big play. It's a symbol of our blue-collar culture, and it's something that we rally around, and it gets our guys excited and creates energy. AJ was wearing the helmet because he had just hit the home run. Later in the inning, Sam Harris hits a single. We score from first on a single to take the lead in the championship game of a regional to go to a super regional. Our guys are undoubtedly excited, and they should be. And they jump out of the dugout to high-five their teammates as they're running back over to the dugout. AJ still had the helmet on from where he had hit the home run and celebrated. He took 2 steps out of our dugout, not to show anybody up, not to be disrespectful of the game, not to disrespect Oklahoma State, to cheer on his teammate and give him high fives. This rule and this type of action by the umpire are why people get so frustrated with the NCAA. I'm disappointed for AJ Gracia that he won't play in one of the biggest games of his life when we start the Super Regional. I'm disappointed for Duke baseball, and I'm disappointed for college baseball. And I want to get that off my chest. And if I get fined, I get fined. But we deserve better than that. AJ Gracia deserves better than that. Our sport deserves better than that.
Yeah, you certainly didn't see Coach Pollard mince any words at all when talking about the events that unfolded there in the Athens regional, guys, talking about AJ Gracia and now facing a suspension as they head into super regionals. We will see if an appeal can go through at the last moment or that sort of thing. But as it stands right now, this is a massive blow for Duke baseball and really silly at the end of the day. I mean, seriously?
Yeah, like I say, I was locked in all weekend. I watched college baseball from the noon till about 1 a.m. I'm a big fan of chaos. I love chaos when we get to the tournaments, as long as it doesn't mess with Duke.
There you go.
I love chaos. And, it worked out the way it did. I've seen guys out there, Florida State, for example. Link Jarrett gets tossed in the first inning because the pitcher for Mississippi State stands there and taunts his dugout after he strikes out a guy. Link Jarrett loses his mind, which is what he's supposed to do, in my opinion, as a coach. I've coached many times. I've lost my brain many times out there. But that's what you do. You defend your guys. You try to do what you can. Jarrett gets tossed, and he can't coach Friday night or Saturday night the first time they play.
Right.
Because someone else was taunting. Now, if he got out there and did something with the helmet that was derogatory and did it towards the dugout, yes, you suspend him. But you just don't pull this garbage. And the fact that we're still having this conversation that he's not playing is just ludicrous. Why in the world is the NCAA, like Coach Pollard said, why are they holding this back? The kid is one of the best players in college baseball, had a great weekend. And he took the helmet off after he took a step outside the thing anyway. It is what it is. I guess you got to follow it to the rule, to the law, or whatever. But as a fan, and even if I wasn't a Duke fan, and I say this tongue in cheek sometimes, but I'm not joking when I say this. Had it been Chapel Hill College, had it been one of their players that had the same thing happen, I would be just up in arms right now as I am about this.
Right. Because
it's just not right. That's what this is for. We're having the tournament for enjoyment, for the kids to watch. And you're going to take one of the best players out. Now, in Duke's case, I hope they come out and they take care of business on Friday night or Saturday afternoon. Then Sunday afternoon, hopefully, he'll be back in the lineup if they don't figure out something, because they've still got almost 48 hours to figure this thing out.
Yep. Ultimately, you want to be bigger than just one player, right? Like you want to make sure that the sum of all of your parts is the ultimate goal. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so two things about this. First of all, you can't overstate just the crazy run that AJ Gracia had been on for the last 6 weeks or so.
Right.
I mean, Scott and I were attending a few of the earlier season games, and AJ, I mean, you're speaking just honestly, he was in a major slump to start the season. I mean, they moved him all the way down to batting ninth in the order. He was hitting in the 170s batting average. I mean, it was one of those things where it's kind of like the next step for Coach Pollard is to bench him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to be out of the lineup. And he turned it around, and now he's right back just under 300 now, but he had bumped his average to over 300. He was hitting the baseball. He hit a homer, as Coach Pollard said, an oppo homer in that game. And so that's the first thing.
Is that swing, by the way, to go one point being 170 to over 300. I mean, that's a stretch where let's just do the averages here, man. You've got to be hitting 400 or 500 over the course just to get back into that position. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then the second thing is the importance of if and as of right now, since Duke is going to be without AJ in the first game, it's imperative that Ben Miller is able to heal that hand. I know that's the plan is for Ben Miller to be able to play, but I believe it's imperative for Duke and their offense for Ben to be in that lineup. Obviously, he took a hit by pitch on the inside kind of his right hand, right by his wrist. And stayed in the game, but then what did not play, as Scott alluded to earlier, did not play in that final game, what ended up being the final game for Duke against Oklahoma State. But I believe the Duke offense would really struggle missing what you would probably say are its top two bats. Well, I can't say that for Wallace Clark. 2 out of the top 3 bats on the team being out would be a very, very big uphill battle for Duke in the first game.
Scott, what would it mean for Duke baseball to make it to the College World Series? I teased the number going to break, but since 1961, Duke's hasn't been to the – they've been to 4 super regionals in the last 7 years, which in and of itself is really, really hard to do. But to get there, to play in Omaha, what would that mean?
So it's two things I want to follow up what Josh just said. So as of the recording that we're having right now, Ben Miller did practice today from what I read, and it looks like everything's going well.
Wonderful.
So fingers crossed, whatever you got to do for that to happen. Talking about going to the College World Series, it's funny to me that for so many years now, Duke has had the opportunity to be right there on the cut line for the regionals, and they've never made it.
Yeah.
So who would have ever thought that Duke would get a super regional before they ever got a regional?
Right.
So, but back to your question, it would be unbelievable. Duke has done a great job of working the transfer portal. And the Ivy League, there's a pipeline right now from the Ivy League down to Durham. Ben Miller, kid who grew up here, played 4 years in the Ivy, came back, and has had 2 great seasons. Last year, Logan Bravo had a great year. I'm going to miss some people, and I hate I even started that. But this year –
well, don't you have Hyde and is Berger,
Hyde,
Rounds?
Berger, Rounds. All those guys are transfers. Hindi, a couple other guys. But it's been great to see how that's worked out. The fact that if Duke could make the College World Series and they do it in my lifetime, and it's been that long, I mean, I'm like Josh said earlier, I've been a Duke fan since birth. You know, my dad always told me and my brother as we were kids, my grandfather was a security guard at Duke. And he says, boys, we said, Dad, why are we Duke fans? Why are we like this? He said, boys, had your grandfather worked at Chapel Hill, you'd be a Chapel Hill College fan. But by the grace of God, he got paid by Duke University, and you're a Duke fan the rest of your life. Yeah. So, hey, you can't fight the man. He knows he's got some wisdom.
I think big picture too about the significance of the College World Series is, it was pretty much common knowledge that Chris Pollard was a sought after entity by several teams after last year's run and previous years to that even, and the commitment that Nina King, shout out to Nina King, has made to baseball, in multiple facets, including. Duke is in the middle of a renovation, and I know there's a lot kind of going on there, but completed, last offseason, completed the dugout renovation. And there are plans for a major upgrade down the third base line, indoor seating and, just a really cool indoor facility that's going to kind of stretch from the grandstand currently down that third base line into left field. And so, Duke showing commitment to Coach Pollard, and showing commitment to baseball is very important. And then in turn for Coach Pollard to put together this season, as a result of that, was pretty incredible. And listen, Duke, the transfer portal gives and it takes away. And, Duke lost a guy like Devin Obey last year to Georgia, who Duke, just beat to go to the Super Regional. But, I mean, they lost guys in that portal as well. And for him to replace those guys and to put together a season, to me, it's kudos to him, kudos to the athletic department, kudos to Nina King for prioritizing a sport that, let's be honest, it doesn't generate revenue. It's a sport that some schools choose to invest in if they're good at it, and other schools just kind of let it happen. And Duke has chosen to invest in it, and so kudos to everybody involved there for putting together, what this Duke baseball program is now.
And I would say to take that one step further, talking about the transfer portal, for example, Andrew Fisher, the leadoff man and one of the top batters in the SEC, was a Dookie 2 years ago. He transferred to Mississippi, hit 20 last year, and I think he's at 24 for the season now. So it's unbelievable. But the fact that Coach Pollard, and he will be well sought after, I do believe, after this season, no matter what happens, because he's built the program. And we've said this many times. I think baseball is a little bit different than football. I think it's similar to basketball in a way, but basketball now is just totally different. But they could put a statue of Chris Pollard out right now. he could coach here to the day he decides he wants to put him up. He could be a Mike Martin, a guy like that, and stay for 25, 30 years and would do a great job because kids love him. And there's still, it's just unbelievable. And the fact that he fights, and just like the interview you showed a few minutes ago about Gracia, man, that made me want to run through a wall. If my coach did that when I was in high school or college, man, I'd have run through a wall from them in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think it is going to be so paramount that Duke continue to put resources into the baseball program as other schools are doing that across the sport, particularly like down in the SEC where it feels like all the top talent is going. You want to have a competitive atmosphere. And over the past few years, Duke's been having to split home games between their on-campus stadium and then at Durham Bulls Athletic Park. And as cool as that is to kind of promote, you want the opportunity to have this on campus. And that is, I know that when other schools are calling Chris Pollard or recruits, transfers, and telling them reasons why, anti-recruiting against Duke, that's got to be one of the things that they say, which is why I'm so excited to think about the atmosphere we'll see this weekend there with folks watching and supporting this Duke team.
Oh, man, tickets were on sale for less than 10 minutes and they were gone. That tells you how
it's a good sign.
If you'd have told me 3 weeks ago when they announced that Duke and Carolina would both be hosting this weekend, I'd have laughed at you. There's no way. Obviously I would have hoped that Oklahoma would have won last weekend, and that's why. But, it's a great thing for this area. This is a baseball hotbed. Carolina, State, East Carolina always get the big coverage, always get the big thing. I'm sorry. Duke is the next best team in my opinion. Carolina's really good. They have a chance for a national title. Duke has a chance too. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that they're on the map now, they're getting the opportunity. And honestly, two Cinderellas playing each other this weekend at Coombs Field. Because Murray State, great weekend last week. They almost made us have to go down to Ole Miss this weekend. But they put the pieces of the Band-Aid back on and finished it up.
It's going to be awesome to see it unfold. We saw Duke softball make it to the College World Series for the first time ever in 2024. Let's have Duke baseball now go for the first time ever here in 2025. I'm expecting big things this weekend, feeling good about Duke's chances. Just got to get out there and get the job done. Hope the pitching's good and you can get the offensive runs behind it and that sort of thing. All right, fellas, let's take one more break. And then when we come back, we'll talk a little football to start to wrap up our conversation here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Friends, thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch each and every day. For your second listen, go ahead and check out The Portal Show. Locked On's very own Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape, like Darian Mensah coming over to play football for Duke. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Also, be sure to check out Locked On College Basketball with hosts Andy Patton and Isaac Shade. They're talking about college hoops year-round. They've got a lot of nice things to say right now about John Shire and Duke basketball, so go check that out next, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, here we go. Josh Cox, Scott Medlin here. We're talking Duke football now to kind of wrap up this Thursday episode of the program from the Section 17 podcast. Josh, you've been on Locked On for a while. We're always talking Section 17, and Scott's been a big part of that with you, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. We were just four guys that enjoyed Duke football and decided to throw a podcast together back 5 years ago now. And it's been a fun ride. But, yeah, we all have our unique personalities. Scott, as he mentioned earlier, has his unique personality, and that sometimes includes outbursts, and it's all good. So, if you're listening, watching, unfamiliar with what we do, at Duke FB Talk is our handle on X, Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have a group there as well. And we put out weekly podcasts in season during football, and we'll do some off-season stuff. Just spoke to Matt Craycraft and Brian Parker a little while ago. Did some anyway. We try to do some things and stay in touch with Duke football. So if you're one of those crazy people that love Duke football, we can be a resource for you for sure.
Well, when we talk about the college football season coming up, I know one of the big signs that everybody looks for is when Phil Steele puts out his big publication magazine. It's off the press. Athlon, all these big companies are putting out their college football previews. A lot of people correlate that with summer beach trips coming up, sitting there beachside, looking at the sport, getting ready for the upcoming fall. Scott, when you look at Duke going into the season, what's kind of the one thing right now that excites you about this football team?
I'm looking forward to see Darian Mintz on the team. I'm looking forward to seeing the tight ends. I think they're going to get a great opportunity, which, last year we had some young guys. We had some guys get better, but now we're going to have a transfer portal guy that has been in here for 4 years or 3 years. We're going to have Hazley back. We're going to still have Taylor, who had a pretty good season there towards the end.
No doubt.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what the offense has to do. And like I said, I really think Darian Mintz is going to be the real deal. And I think Duke football guy, everybody's going to look back and think to, Thad Lewis, people like that, and maybe even older. Now, granted, I'm an old man compared to a lot of these people. Ben Bennett. Ben Bennett was a great quarterback when I was a young pup, back when I had hair and stuff.
Yeah, for me, JJ, I was a couple of things. I think I'm looking forward to seeing the wide receiver room, because there's a lot of questions about wide receiver. But I think Samir Hagens and Sean Brown are going to anchor that as far as the Duke, depth there. But then two guys, Andrew Anthony and Cooper Barkate coming in are going to be significant there. That's the first thing. Second thing is the secondary. Obviously, you got Chandler Rivers that's stealing all the talk right now, and rightfully so. Loyal to Duke, had tons of opportunities elsewhere, could have gone anywhere he wanted to go for basically naming his price, and has chosen to stick it out, finish at Duke, get his degree at Duke, which shout out to Chandler Rivers. This is the year of Chandler Rivers. But then it's also, I know Terry Moore is also being spoken about in the media, but Terry is injured. Terry tore his ACL in the bowl game. So Terry's not playing the first half plus of the season. And so I'm really interested to see how a secondary, especially the safeties, they've got to stay injury-free. They got to make it to Terry Moore getting back. Caleb Weaver, a couple of other guys have come in the transfer portal. You got Deshaun Stone back there, who had a very good season last year. But anyway, that's what I'm really focusing on, really, is that defensive side of the ball to counteract Scott's focus on the offense. I'm looking at defense and, please, God, we cannot afford an injury at the safety position until Terry gets back.
Yeah, Deshaun Stone, graduate of AC Reynolds High School, like yours truly, and so many others. So I'm excited to see what that secondary is able to put together. And year two of Manny Diaz, this is more comfortable now. I enjoyed listening to Coach Diaz talk post-spring about just how much more comfortable everything is. Yes, you've got new pieces on the roster itself, but a coaching staff that only lost one assistant, right, Josh? I mean, there's been continuity on the sidelines, and that's important this time of year as well.
Yeah, and then to replace Coach Simmons with Coach Foster, a Big Ten guy, Northwestern guy, I think that was a great move. And you're right, it wasn't just, I think it's twofold. Number one, it seems like Manny Diaz has been here for 5 years. It's only been 1 year, one season. The two things of that is the lack of coaching turnover, I think, is important, but also that leads to, in my opinion, the lack of player turnover. And Duke, it's been well documented, the second fewest transfers out in the country. And so, to me, then that tells you all you need to know about stability. It tells you about the Duke brand. It tells you about the consistency of Coach Diaz. It tells you about the staff and the culture he's building for Duke football.
I can't wait. It's going to be here before we know it. We'll have tons of conversations about this football season coming up, and a really exciting weekend here with Duke baseball going to the Super Regionals. Fellas, great to see you as always. We're going to have to do this again sometime soon, okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
See you, man.
All right. That's Josh Cox and Scott Medlin joining me here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. That brings us to a close here on the show today as well. Thank you for your support. Always be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever it is that you get your podcast. Go Duke! I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.